Yeah, I'm going to welcome up Noah, DaCosta, Randall and Danica are going to come and join the platform.
Come on up, guys.
Welcome up.
We got microphones. We got a spot on the couch. There's Randall, fantastic. So, ladies and gentlemen, did anyone know that it was RUOK Day yesterday? Did you see that on your socials in your schools? Fantastic. So I love the airtime that RUOK Day gets as an event in Australia. A conversation could save a life. A conversation could change a life. We were talking as a leadership team. We know that mental health is one of those things that doesn't just impact the people that we know that are going through a diagnosed mental health condition, but mental health is something that we all carry, that we all journey with. And so we can be mentally healthy, we can be mentally unhealthy, just as we can be physically healthy and physically unhealthy. And I think it's a really healthy thing for a community and for people to be able to talk vulnerably and openly and honestly about how we are doing with things like this. So that's part of the conversation here tonight. You may have felt this before as well. People talk about anxiety a lot in our day and age among teenagers. And something that can bring on anxiety is like if someone is fearful about something that's upcoming. The distance between what they think might happen and what will actually happen, the greater that distance is, the more room there is for me to be scared and anxious about it, right? Similarly, it can be with our faith journey. We might come to a place like CY and be sitting in our small group and have this front, like this mask that we put on of the Christian that I am or the person that I am, how often I pray, read the Bible, whatever. And there might be a great distance between what I say about myself and my faith and my relationship with Jesus and what I actually feel, what I actually experience, what I'm actually going through. And the bigger that gap, there can exist shame in that space in between. And so mental health is our topic for tonight because we all go through it. But you may take into this conversation some feelings of shame, feelings of angst, things that we're going through, and you can apply this to your walk with Jesus, to your friendships that you're in community with. So the conversation we have tonight is to normalise this, to say that we're all in this together. All four of us and all of our friends have mental health that we journey with. So we wanted to open up the conversation, just have a chat. So can you guys give it up again for Noah, Danica and Randall just for being up here on the platform? We might just do a super quick intro even. If people haven't been in your small group, maybe don't know you, they've seen your face. Who are you, Noah? What's the Instagram bio information that we should know about you, bro? You're on podcasts. What?
Yeah, dang, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's all good. So I'm Noah DaCosta, for those who don't know. I've been coming to Crossway for like 10 years this year. Been in youth. Yeah, it's been fun time.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. Well, yeah, cheers, yeah. I actually work here as well. I'm the videographer here and I do a bunch of freelance work outside of that. And then in terms of my kind of passions and interests, I'm just really into media. So I love interviewing people. I love podcasts. I've got my own podcast as well. I've got to be on a few, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just love music as well, originally from the UK. And yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. And you're a small group leader of?
Oh, you're 12 boys. You're 12 boys. Shout out to, I think, the one who came today, Isaac.
Isaac, shout out to Isaac.
Shout out to you.
So you've done some podcasts, you've done some interviewing. Can you introduce and get some information from our other two panellists, please?
Absolutely.
Put him on the spot. Let's just see the skills.
Indeed. Well, I'll go ladies first, because Mama is a gentleman. Would you want me to introduce them or just pass the mic to them, actually?
Ask them about themselves.
Oh,
we want to hear
well,
the same thing we just said about you.
So, Danica, why don't you tell us about who, that's a pun, actually. You'll figure out why it's a pun later, who you are.
So my name's Danica. I finished leading, so I don't lead anymore, but you probably have seen me around maybe at the welcome desk or at the welcome table, the welcome team. Or at the cafe, yeah. I am a social worker. I mainly work with young people, children and families. Really passionate about young people, yeah.
You were, sorry.
I was going to say, and her last name is Danica Hu as well, that was the joke.
I was going to dive a little deeper on that one, but you maybe were too. You were working here at Crossway Life Care with the coach team, with mentoring teenagers. You've recently shifted to different work, social work. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in your new role?
Yeah, so my new role, I work with families who they have young people or children in their family and they've just got some, I guess, yeah, it could be mental health issues or just complex issues where they just need some support. So I do a lot of talking to parents, trying to understand what's going on at home, understanding teenagers, young people, and I try to provide advice and, yeah, provide them with services that can help them, yeah, help everyone in the family, both parents and children. Yeah.
Well, I'll take it back now. What about you, Randall? Good to have you,
cool.
bro.
Lucky last. So my name's Randall, if anyone doesn't know me. Luckily, leader of the coolest Year 12 boys that are somewhere scattered around here.
Come on, we hear
A bit about myself. So I like maths. I'm like in like analytics and that kind of field. And passions, music, sports. What else? That's pretty much the main one. Music and sports. So if anyone want to talk about that, just come up and say hello. I'll be nice. I promise.
You are the guy that if you've put a song up on your Instagram story, it's a good one. Like,
yeah, definitely.
You're a good curator.
Yeah. It's one you have to screenshot and then put it in the playlist.
I do that often. So, yeah, good man.
All right.
Randall, we went last with you then. We might come to you first, bro. Yeah. Talking about mental health, everyone's experience. What's your experience? You can take this in a personal direction or a friendship group direction.
Yeah.
What's your experience been of mental health growing up?
Experience of mental health, I'd say, is something that I never ever really thought of heaps until end of high school. Just went to, if anyone here goes to Highvale, it's just like down the road, literally just around the corner on Highbury Road. But all group of boys, kind of footy, most came tradies, kind of love sports, but don't really like talking about feelings much. And that wasn't a bad thing. It just, at the time, it wasn't something that was really spoken about or given much attention. So the, like, how you going? Basic answer would be like, yeah, I'm going all right. Like, that's as far as it would go. It wasn't until later coming into church, a young adults group, like coming to faith really where you're in a kind of a group where you actually have to talk about who you are as a person, who you want to be. The friend like turn the other cheek kind of reflects on, okay, do I do that in my like kind of feels and like actually think about my emotions? So it wasn't until like later on where emotions and stuff kind of became a main thought or thing of the picture that I have to actually think about, which was great that I had a good group of people around me because, you see other people who go through friends, keep things silent, and then when it comes up, now it's a serious issue that you have to actually address. So being open and talking about things was kind of really good because you definitely need it when it's either yourself, you can't really give advice if you don't know actually how to apply it to yourself a lot of the time as well. So knowing it for yourself and being that person for your friends around you who are actually going through some tough times. Yeah.
So you reckon when you were in the sporting groups where people were just like, yeah, I'm good, no one talked about it, people were probably carrying some stuff that went unnoticed, but it sort of comes out later in life when people learn how to talk about this kind of stuff. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think it's really easy for a lot of people just to put a smile and kind of like what you're talking about, a persona. That's why I think this "Are you okay?" question is really good because you might just go about and thinking all your friends are laughing, smiling, and things are okay. But when a text message comes and then it's a bit of a shock, like, oh wow, maybe I should have actually initiated that conversation a bit earlier, or being a bit more open or vulnerable myself, so that that space could have been held. Yeah, definitely.
That's good, mate. Danica, what about you? What's mental health look like for you growing up?
I think we all grew up pretty much around the same time, and I think back then it wasn't really a thing, or especially when we were in school. I mean, like, we know that I think like, yeah, mental health as in diagnosis, like depression and anxiety, that was a thing, but it wasn't really spoken about. Accessing, like seeing a psychologist or seeing a counselor, like that was never like really talked about. I know for myself, I had a really tough time in high school. I had a lot of, I guess, not so positive experiences, and yeah, there was just nowhere to share it, and like I didn't know what to do. And I guess, yeah, being like a teenager at a school where like there's so many students who are walking around, everyone's just having fun, it is very overwhelming, and you don't know where to start, where to get help, and sometimes at home isn't the best place to ask for help as well.
Okay.
So yeah, that was what it was like for us. So when I see how schools, they have wellbeing teams now, they have psychologists on at school, they've got, they promote things like wellbeing days and all that. I think like, yeah, you guys are really lucky, because that was never really a thing, or at least for myself, yeah.
Wow, yeah. I'd love to come back in a second to sometimes home's not the best place to ask for help, because some people might be feeling like that, like family doesn't quite understand what I'm going through. So we'll revisit that, but thanks. Noah, what about you, bro? Mental health, growing up, what's it look like for you?
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me. I think for starters, like my family moved around quite a bit when I was younger. So I was born and raised in the UK, then we moved to America, we lived there for a few years, and then we moved here 10 years ago, and hence why Crossway is 10, that's the first church we came to. And I think, like Danica was saying, there wasn't really a focus of mental health in high school. Maybe there were kind of a few whispers of it towards the latter end. But I know that for myself, I just always loved, just deep conversations, D&Ms. Like, if any of you guys have chatted to me, then you've probably experienced this to the point where like I tend to talk in like essays about whatever. But I don't know, I just always find that interesting, and I've always been kind of outgoing and stuff. So my way of kind of, I guess, coping with all the moving around and kind of feeling a bit kind of homeless in that sense was to just kind of connect with people and have conversations, and that was helpful to a degree, but it didn't necessarily kind of defeat those feelings. It just kind of became my escape and kind of way of avoiding it. And in terms of kind of really, really facing, I mean, kind of like Randall said, obviously coming into young adults and youth helped that as well. I think youth was a big staple in that. And then young adults, of course, talking about kind of where you're at, your feelings, that was a big player in it too, because Randall and I were part of the same life group. But then I think where I kind of really started reckoning with it seriously and started actually, I guess, trying to take it more seriously was during lockdown last year. I think because, here we are again, I'm a massive extrovert, like I'm out most days doing stuff. Suddenly it's like cut off, I'm alone in my room. I live quite far from the east now. I used to go to Forest Hill, but now I live quite far. So I didn't even have access to any of my friends in the 5K zone. I was in a relationship in the 2 years, and then there was a breakup, all in lockdown, all that kind of stuff, and then had like a massive kind of like faith wobble as well, to where I wasn't really sure about kind of what I believed. So, and that was like the foundation of like who I was. So I was just a complete mess. And it kind of got to the point where I was just like, I don't know, the way I kind of saw it, I was just like, well, I can't fix any of this. I don't want to be in this place. I'm just going to just start going to therapy, really. And that was like kind of the latter half of last year. And yeah, been going ever since, trying to go regularly. Sometimes there are gaps where I don't go, but I've been going ever since. And I don't know, I kind of realized that like, because it's something that I can't function without addressing it properly. I can't be who I want to be or who I feel like God needs me to be without, dealing with it properly. Not just talking to people, not just kind of having chats, but actually putting things in place to actually manage this thing rather than just existing. Because a lot of people are just existing, but I think, we're called to do more than just exist, we're called to kind of live full, rich lives, There are going to be ups and downs, but we're not just meant to just kind of plod through. So that's my kind of condensed version of that, yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. you access a therapist, you said, during lockdown. Was that a big deal to make that step? You said it like it was a very normal thing, which is awesome. I think sometimes accessing a therapist or a counsellor can feel like a big step, like, oh, that's like a scary thing. I don't know what that looks like. How'd you find that? And was that a scary big step, or what do you think? Was it worth it?
Yeah, definitely worth it. Definitely worth it. I think if everybody could have their own therapist, that would be like ideal, to be honest. In terms of was it difficult, I think I was blessed in the sense that no, it wasn't difficult. The reason being is because, again, I've always, like my family's always been like, we just discuss and talk about things in great depth, and then I kind of took that into my friendships, and the friendships kind of built that was always like a part of it. So for me, it was just logical. There wasn't really much difficulty in it. It was like, the way I saw it is that, like, well, if you've got a broken leg, you're going to go to a doctor. So if you've got like everyone's got something wrong with them in a sense. But if there's something that you can't, if there's like a mental issue that you can't get a hang of, there's something that you can't stop doing, or there's something you keep having panic attacks, whatever it is, whatever the situation is, then why would you not go to, basically, this, I don't mean this as literally as it sounds, but if your leg's broken, go to a doctor. If your mind's broken, go to a therapist. For me, it was just like, I can't deal with all this. Like, this is just too much. So I'm just going to go to a therapist. And the thing that I like about therapists as well is that, like, you have permission to just dump your stuff. Like, because with friends, obviously it's good to talk to your friends, and if you have relationships where you can actually, talk about things, that's excellent. In fact, if you don't, I would definitely try and see if you can find that, or try and start developing that whichever way you can. However, you want to make sure that you're talking to your friends, you're not just dumping things on them, because then they end up carrying it. And if you're the therapist of your friend group, you already know what I'm talking about, like, you can just end up taking it on. It doesn't necessarily become productive, it just becomes a dumping ground. Versus with a therapist, you can dump as much as you want, but because they're professionals, they actually know what to do with the garbage, not really, but that you're dumping on them in that sense.
Sure.
So long story short, it wasn't that difficult for me, but I realized that it is for a lot of people. For the way I just grew up and came up, it was just a logical decision, but I know that for others, it's more of like a thing, and there is a massive stigma around it still, which I know I want to play a big part in just rubbishing it, because that stigma is just nonsense, really. Yeah.
Get rid of the stigma. That's good. I'm seeing nods and smiles from this couch. Does that bring anything up for you guys that you'd like to share? Have you had common experience or noticed something similar?
My mind's just blank now. I think.
That's cool.
No, I think what Noah was saying at the last part about venting to a friend and not being the person that just takes all the load. I think going through situations where I had friends go through dark times, I think sometimes the most important thing is not having a complex where you have to be the savior of your friend. And I think the most important thing that someone needs in their life when they're going through a hard time is consistency, and just being there and knowing. I think also going back to knowing if you know how to what mental health is to you, you know how to be that for a friend, and you know in the time where someone's going through something that, hey, I'm going to be here through the long haul, but let's both go find solutions or things that will really help you, that we can do this together. And if you're feeling alone or you're bearing all the brunt of a situation, then that's not really going to last. And you'd want someone to have a friend that's going to be there for them, not just for a short period of time, but for a long one. So know how to use your boundaries, and help a friend when they're in a time of need, not just for, I'm going to be the savior for these 5 minutes and tell me everything, but hey, how can we fight this for the long haul?
It's great, man. Yeah, that's good. There are things that, so going to someone like a therapist or a counsellor who's been working with a lot of people who might be dealing with panic attacks or dealing with anxiety or whatever someone might be facing, it's comforting, I think, to be able to talk to someone who's been through this a lot and maybe different than if somebody told me that stuff who's not a trained counsellor. I might just try my best to try and like help you out, but a trained counsellor's got the tried and true methods of, hey, this is what people find really helpful, and if you're going through this, this is what can work for other people, and they can give you some tools which are just really practical, which is fantastic. Do you guys have any tools or things that you do or that your friends do maybe that are helpful in protecting mental health? I'd imagine there are certain things that are like risk factors that make things worse. Probably isolation and hanging out on screens for 2 years isn't a good one. And maybe some things that are practical, like, you know, living a healthy lifestyle and getting exercise and talking to friends and stuff are good things. Any things that you go, these are the main ones that I try and hit, or that my friends try and hit, that are protective factors for mental health?
Actually, someone else want to go first? No, sorry.
Go for it. What a gentleman.
There are a few. Obviously, you already referenced talking to friends, and I know that's not one of the main ones. But I will say, just to kind of, because I know I mentioned therapy, like, you know, you need therapy. But in terms just a little bit on the friend thing, one of the things is actually just being honest with your friends. Like when they ask how you're going, actually answering honestly. This is, I think, if oftentimes there's a kind of like, you know, feeling of like, you know, so it's like, how are you going? They're not really asking how you're going. Well, yeah, obviously day-to-day random in the street, like you're not going to be like, oh, how you going? Oh, yeah, you know, I'm depressed, and, you know, just been like, you're not going to do this to some random stranger. That's a bit much. But in terms of like your actual friend, when they're asking you, trust that it's genuine, because you feeling nervous to say so is probably more of a societal pressure than it is a genuine pressure, because if they really are your friend, then they'll actually hear you out in that. And just telling them how you are isn't dumping. So that's one thing. That's one checkup. Just being honest and real with them as you can, because you can always laugh with your friends. But if you can only laugh with your friends, then I'm not saying they're not your friends, but it's just like there's something missing there.
There's more to life than laughter.
Exactly. I say another thing is, for me, writing it down, no matter how negative or dark the thought may be, just writing it down, kind of getting it out of your head onto paper. I know, like, for me, I was just saying to one of my boys, I carry it around. I've made a habit now of just carrying around like a little notebook. I just carry this everywhere. I use it for literally everything, whether it's a thought, a poem idea, whatever it is. I just use it for everything, including just, you know, when I'm feeling happy or down or something like that. And that helps just to kind of lift the burden of just carrying this thought in my head, because sometimes when you do that, not only is there like a bit of a release in actually writing it down, not just writing it down like in your phone, but physically writing it down, but it also, when you come back to it, when you're out of whatever that moment is, you're kind of able to kind of see where you're at more clearly and kind of, you know, take notes, whether mental or just literal just notes. And, oh, I was feeling, you know, you might say, oh man, I'm so angry, I want to fight this person or something like that. You write that thought down, you come back to it. Okay, wow, I was really angry then. What made me so angry, you know what I mean? So I think that's a really good checkpoint as well. And that's all that comes to mind for the moment, yeah.
That's good, that's excellent. And I like what you said there about telling friends, because it's important to have somebody that knows the whole story. So if everybody just gets the mask, and if we look around and go, here's probably the best friends I can name on my hand, who actually knows when I'm like not doing well, or who do I talk to? And if it's no one, that's probably a problem. So that's good.
Can I add to that real quick as well?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and you know, with the struggle I mentioned of the last 2 years of lockdown and isolation, I think part of why I was struggling so much is because I was cut off from my friends. Because even though, yeah, I could call them and talk to them on Zoom, which I was doing to a degree, I just found that really exhausting. So, I mean, now that we actually can be in each other's presence, like, definitely take advantage of that. Although, even if you don't have access to them, again, calling, texting, just whatever way, just be real. Yeah. No, I wasn't referencing the out. Relax. Relax.
Be real. Danica, you mentioned people in school as well, there's counsellors, wellbeing team. There's probably some people who are like better than just a friend to talk to sometimes as well. I'm loading a question there. Do you guys want to add anything before that to the things that you do, protective factor type things?
I think it's really important to identify who are your safe people, whether that is a friend that you can tell, but even better, a safe adult. Sometimes your friends, they can listen to you, like we were talking about, they can listen to you, they can understand, or they're willing to be there for you and they want to help you, but they're not, you might not be trained, they might not be trained, or they might not know what to do. Always have an adult that you know that if anything happens, you can tell them, whether that is a teacher, the well-being person at your school, even your youth leader, just an adult that you feel comfortable sharing information with. They're probably the better ones who can actually give you information or lead you to somewhere you can get help. So I really encourage you to think about who those people are.
You had that person in your life, an adult?
I'm an adult.
Very true.
Yes and no. I think, for me, I think, being at this age is a little bit harder because my family, I can tell my sister, but at the same time, I think because of what I do self-help myself a lot.
Yeah, sure. No, I meant you had that person when you were a bit younger. Yeah.
No, I did not.
Okay.
I didn't know. That was something I wish I knew when I was in high school. I was someone who would kind of isolate myself when things go bad. So I wouldn't tell anyone anything. I didn't know who to tell. There was just no one around that I felt safe to tell. I think, it could have been, there were people around, but I don't think I mentally was aware or made that connection that, hey, I could actually tell someone about this. I think that would have changed a lot of things. Even just letting someone know, an adult know, hey, things might not be so great, or I'm not in a great situation. Even if you don't give them the full story, just letting them know right now things aren't great. Can you check up on me? Or I just want to let you know things are happening. That gives someone to keep you accountable. Someone can check up on you. Someone knows what's going on, and they can see, they can keep eyes on you if anything does happen. So even if you don't tell them the full story, at least someone is aware, and that I think that's the most important. Even if sometimes telling your friend, if your friend does tell you something and you don't know what to do with it, just say, hey, can we tell someone about this? I hear what you're saying. I see that it's not a great situation right now, but can we tell someone who can help you? And it's okay to say that I don't know how to help you.
That's great. So getting things out of it just being you, notepads, friends, trusted people, adults in your world is a theme here. Do you have anything to add, Randall? Healthy protective factors for mental health in your own world or the people around you?
I'd just say, for me, I try to keep the most important things, really the most important things. And that sounds like just a buzzword or a cliche thing to say. But if I know the things in my life that gives me the most reward or biggest mental health, if I could put them on a spectrum, what would be the biggest thing? And most important things would probably be relationships. Do I feel purpose in life? Do I keep rhythms? And then at the far end of the spectrum would be things like my music that I share on Instagram. It's a nice thing, but if I'm filling my cup up, if I do things in reverse, I'm just going to be all out of whack. And the most times I notice when I'm not mentally healthy is simple things like, am I extra stressed at work? Am I waking up later? Am I going to bed later? Am I not being aware of my friends when social cues that I should pick up on because I'm more stressed about myself? So, and on those most important things, we kind of briefly spoke about being able to be honest with your friends and open up with them. Which one of the people around me do I come out of their company feeling really healthy and good? If my core people and the things that I'm spending my most time on are draining me, then it's not really preparing me to be a mentally well person. And yeah, I think that's probably it. I make sure that the people that I feel most loved around, I show that I love them, and the time that I'm giving my energy in is actually the most important stuff.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent, man.
Okay,
Yeah.
So just one tiny thing as well.
Yeah, go.
Sorry, it says. Also, don't go on social media past like 9 o'clock. Like, I think I saw some things saying like, if you're thinking about your life past like 9 o'clock, don't do it. Like, what was it? No, it was yeah.
That's a rule you live by?
It's trying to live by.
Good man.
Trying to live by.
Good man.
When I do follow it, my life is a lot better. It's you don't trust what you think about your life past 9 p.m. and definitely don't have social media in the example. Like,
don't trust what you think about your life past 9 p.m. That's cool.
Yeah, just sleep.
You're not
just
in a good
sleep.
way. Yeah, sleep.
Yeah.
That's good. Fantastic. I want to come back. Danica, you mentioned sometimes it's difficult to talk to people at home. And I know that, so we've spoken about stress there. People are going through school. It's a stressful time. People may be like not feeling at their best because of stress. Sometimes, like you mentioned, Randall, which friends do I come away from and feel the most mentally healthy or the best about myself? Sometimes friendships, like you can get in a bad cycle with mental health. You're all in the same class, maybe you're all stressed, you're all in a bad spot, and it can be tricky to break the chain. Do you or anyone you know, Danica, have experience of like home not being a good place, and what should somebody do if that's their situation? Like, my friends are all stressed and it's tricky, and like, what does someone do if maybe home doesn't get it, or it's hard to talk to parents like that? Do you know anyone that's been in that situation?
I think finding community where that is separate from that. So for example, like, you're not limited to just your school friends. You're not just limited to like just being at home. So if something is going not so great at home, who are the people who are not involved in that home situation that you trust and you can spend time with, or you can ask for help or talk about the situation? Find people who are not in that situation, because even though they might be in the situation, especially at school when you're like, oh, I'm feeling this, and everyone will be like, yeah, me too. It doesn't help each other because you're feeding off each other's stress, or you're feeding off each other's energy. You need to remove yourself out of that situation and, have other people who are not in that situation to have a clear mind and maybe say some things back, or like, have you thought of it this way? Or like, you're not, like, they might not be more clear-headed than you are. In terms of, I get everyone's home situation is different, and that's probably the hardest one because you're at home most of the time. In that situation, if school is the main place that you are, and the only place that, you have support, definitely go ask for help there. Schools are actually very well equipped these days. I know I keep saying that, but it is very underused. I see it a lot. A lot of people don't realise how well equipped schools are these days. You can see a psychologist at school. You can see a counsellor at school. And they would know better what to do and help you through that. If home is not a great situation to talk about it, and talking about how you feel will make the situation at home even worse, then it's hard, but definitely tell someone out there.
That's good. We're going to have to wrap up in a moment, I'm sorry to say. Time flies when you're having a good conversation. We have multiple different cultures represented here, and different cultures engage with mental health differently. Does anyone else have a comment on like parents' feelings toward mental health and how to manage that if someone is experiencing that it's hard to talk to my parents and they don't understand what's going on? Anyone have a little bit of wisdom to leave with the audience if that's the situation tonight? I'd say that, like, I think for one, it's okay that you can't talk to your parents about it. That sounds kind of weird, but kind of on that cultural note, like, I know that a lot of us are coming from, Asian backgrounds. We have maybe two of us from African backgrounds. Shout out to them ones.
Shout out to everyone, sorry. But even within Australia, like some of them come from really kind of, whether it's wealthy or working class backgrounds, there's that whole kind of thing of, just bury it down. And yeah, there are probably some conversations that you might attempt to have that just either aren't received well or just aren't received. I know that with, I'm quite close to both my parents, but when it comes to my dad, who's born in Ghana, that wasn't much of a conversation. So there are some conversations I just can't really have, and that's okay. But I guess to kind of bring it back to what Danica was saying, just find, that doesn't mean that there's something inherently wrong with your family or that there's something needs to be fixed there. You can obviously grow your relationship over time, over years with your family and stuff like that and all that kind of stuff. But it doesn't mean that something's wrong with that. Oh no, it's not something you have to stress about. Your parents, they grew up and came up in the way that they saw fit, and then they had kids, and now they're raising you with no blueprint. So they're just repeating some of the patterns and some of the things that worked for them or got them through for you, but it's now a different cultural context. So just have awareness and grace for that, not just so you can be like, okay, like if they do something that kind of hurts you, offends you, oh no, it's fine. It's not to say that I'll just brush off any kind of hurt you feel, but just walk in that understanding and know that, okay, cool, I can't necessarily get this from them, and let that be something that empowers you to then go to the counselor, go to the leader, go to the teacher or whatever. Because your parents can't do anything. Sorry, they can't do everything, sorry. Hopefully your parents can do some things.
Can't do everything.
But they can't do everything. And having an awareness of that, I think, is very important. Otherwise, there'll be a lot more frustration kind of put on them for stuff that's out of their control. And that frustration ultimately punishes you more than them, because you'll just be walking with the weight of, wow, I can't believe they're not doing this enough. And it's something that I'm still working on myself, but I think it's a very important thing. Particularly, and like I said, it applies to everyone, but particularly for those with parents of other cultures, because that can often be the case from the stories I've heard.
Excellent. Any other comments? Yeah.
I try to explain things to my parents. For example, Are You Okay Day? I was like, oh, do you guys know what Are You Okay Day is? Do you know what that means? I've been trying to just drop hints of things here and there, do you know when, especially if there are things your parents do that make you upset or you feel not happy at home, I try to say, hey, I think it's using simple language is probably the best. When you do this, it makes me upset. And when I'm upset, it makes me do this, giving them, spelling it out for them, and having those conversations, I think will help them. They might not get it immediately, but it's a place to start normalizing, my friends go see counselors because they talk, and we talk about what we're going through, and it's just for me to process what is happening, instead of framing it my friend has depression and that's why she sees a psychologist. They're going to have a negative viewpoint, and that doesn't help the stigma. It is healthy to see a counsellor. It's healthy to talk about feelings, and helping them understand that in a way that is relevant to your culture maybe somehow, and just making it, we're just having a conversation. There's nothing wrong with talking. Yeah.
That's great. Really good wisdom. Anything to add there, man? No pressure.
I'd just say maybe just have, if it's like a family thing, just have maybe a little bit of grace for your parents. They intend to do everything out of love for us, and from the circumstances that maybe they come from a different country, different time period, they would have had a lot of pressure and some things that they wouldn't have the chance to think about to make it to come to Australia. And that's the luxury that sometimes we have as immigrants, is the hard work that they put to get here. So it might be irritating, you tell your parents, hey, I'm depressed, and they're like, well, press the pen on the paper and get an A+. I don't mean that to be rude, but I'm just saying that as they went through a lot to some of those things that they couldn't have a chance to be aware of, so they can make it and give you the life that you have now. So I know we sometimes look at our parents as superheroes a lot of the times when we're younger, but then it just comes to maturity, to growing up and realizing, hey, no, these are people too. They had to sacrifice a lot and put some things to the side. So they are human beings, and most of the time when you approach them and have honest conversations and start a conversation, they learn and they listen because they actually do care about you.
It's good, man. It's fantastic. I'm sorry to have to say that we've got to wind it up there, team. This is a great conversation. I would have liked to extend it longer. But by way of just landing this before we break off into groups, something that we don't really do at RUOK Day if you're just doing this in a school setting, we're in a faith community here. So we can speak with Jesus and we can pray. So if you would allow me to, would you just bow your heads and close your eyes just for a moment to land this with Jesus, and just know, maybe just in a moment of acknowledgement of exactly where you are personally, how you're going. Are you okay? With the awareness that you have a God who sees you and knows you and loves you and who is right there with you. Not as distant as he might feel, but super close by. You have a God that knows you fully and he loves you fully, knows what you're going through, and he is right there with you. So just as we acknowledge before him how we're actually doing right now, we might have heard some things tonight that are challenging. We might be thinking, I don't actually have friends that know how I'm doing, or I haven't really spoken to my parents at all, and I don't really talk to my parents. When they ask me what youth was like or what school was like, I just give them sort of a one-word answer and go to my room. You might just acknowledge before the Lord, there are things that I know aren't helpful for me. I spend too much time doing whatever it is, and I know that's not healthy, and I don't spend enough time doing whatever it is. You might just acknowledge that right now in your own heart and mind, and know that God sees you and knows you and hears that. And my prayer for you, if you're sitting there, you might like to just clench your fists up physically right now in front of you, and just let that represent something that you've been holding on to that stopped you from seeking support, or that has been bringing you shame, or that's been making things worse in your situation. Just as you're sitting there with your clenched fists, imagine your clenched fists are that thing that's stopping you from letting someone in, and that's causing you harm. And I want you to just, before God, open your hands and release that thing to him. And just say, God, I trust you. And maybe as a result of this conversation tonight, I'm for the first time going to speak to a parent about what I'm going through, or for the first time speak to a youth leader or a friend. It doesn't need to be highly emotionally charged and a very scary thing. I can just talk very normally. Hey, this is what I go through. I haven't told anyone this before. And I'd just like to have a friend that I could maybe could check in with me over the next couple of weeks, or I'll talk to my leader again about this next week. You might just have an obedient step as you release that thing before Jesus, who knows you and sees you, knows what you're going through, and he loves you through it. I think the most important thing is your relationship with Jesus. So just in this moment of acknowledgement before him, you might just like to say, here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I feel like you're saying to me. Here's what's on my heart. And God, before you, I'm committing to this obedient step. And Jesus, I thank you for each person in this room. I believe that you have purpose, that when somebody sits in an auditorium like this, that you have something for them. It's not by accident that someone's in the room tonight. If this is their very first time, or they may have come reluctantly, they may be in a really crisis moment with their mental health. Jesus, I just thank you that they're here because I believe it's for good purpose. And so I pray a blessing on each person, that you feel close to them and that they can see a light at the end of a tunnel if there's darkness, that you can make a way where it feels impossible. Maybe our parents or our family or our friendship group feels like an impossible situation. Jesus, I thank you that you can make a way. And for each young person who's made an obedient step in their heart and mind before you tonight, I pray that it would lead to health and wholeness, that you would make them a bigger and better version of themselves by walking in obedience to what they've committed to before you tonight, Jesus. So you're a good God and you have good things for your children. And so we thank you that we could have this conversation, and that we have youth leaders and peers that we can be open and honest. And I pray for a real feeling of safety and vulnerability for people as they get head off into groups tonight. So we love you, Lord. We are thankful that we get to come into a place like this and worship you and be with one another. You're a good God, and we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Would you thank our panelists for being up here tonight?